This is the largest invertebrate ever recorded on Earth, and for most of history, nobody had seen one alive. The colossal squid can weigh as much as 500 kilograms, stretch nearly 10 meters long, and carry eyes the size of dinner plates, the biggest eyes in the entire animal kingdom. The species was first described in 1925, and not from a body. It was described from 2 arm fragments, torn pieces recovered from the stomach of a sperm whale. That's the entire foundation the species was built on, not a specimen, but evidence of a fight. For decades afterward, that pattern repeated. Whalers processing catches in the Southern Ocean kept finding strange, oversized beaks inside stomach contents. Beaks too large to match any known squid. Fishing vessels running long lines in Antarctic waters occasionally hauled up torn arms and mangled tentacles, animals that had clearly fought their way partly free before dying on the line. Each discovery added another data point, but none of them added up to a full picture. Scientists were assembling a monster from scraps, and every scrap came from violence, a whale's stomach, a fisherman's hook. Never an intact animal, simply encountered in its own environment. Here's where the scale really starts to break your sense of normal. A giant squid, the animal most people already picture when they hear the word sea monster, tops out around 13 meters, including its long feeding tentacles, but it's built like a noodle. Thin, light, mostly length. The colossal squid takes a completely different approach. It's shorter overall, but it's built like a torpedo, thick-bodied, heavily muscled, and far, far heavier. Pound for pound, nothing else in the invertebrate world comes close. That mismatch between length and mass is a direct result of abyssal gigantism, the same deep-sea phenomenon behind giant isopods, oarfish, and Japanese spider crabs. Down in the freezing dark of the Southern Ocean, cold temperatures, slow metabolism, oxygen dissolves more efficiently into tissue, and food arrives rarely enough that growing big and storing energy becomes a long-term survival strategy instead of a liability. The colossal squid didn't get big by accident. The abyss built it that way. Now look at the eyes. Each one can measure roughly 27 centimeters across, close to the size of a dinner plate, and they're not just large for show. In the pitch black of the deep ocean where sunlight never reaches, a bigger eye captures more of the scarce bioluminescent light drifting through the water. Some researchers believe those massive eyes may even let the squid detect the approach of a hunting sperm whale from meters away, giving it a narrow window to react before an attack lands. And it needs that warning, because the colossal squid isn't just built to survive the pressure of the deep. It's built to fight back. This is where the animal really separates itself from every other squid species on the planet. A giant squid's arms are lined with small, serrated sucker rings, useful for gripping, but nothing close to a weapon. The colossal squid replaced most of that sucker tissue with something far more dangerous: rotating hooks, mounted on swiveling bases that let each hook pivot independently, twisting to catch and hold onto flesh no matter how prey or predator tries to pull away. Some of those hooks are 3-pronged, curved, and sharp enough to punch through skin and blubber on contact. Picture dozens of these hooks lining both the arms and the 2 longer tentacles, all capable of rotating at once, all anchoring simultaneously into whatever the squid has grabbed. It isn't a passive defense, it's an animal designed to make sure that anything trying to eat it pays for the attempt. Which brings us to the rivalry this species is best known for, the colossal squid versus the sperm whale. Sperm whales are one of the only predators large enough and deep diving enough to hunt colossal squid regularly, and the evidence of that fight is written directly onto their skin. Whalers and researchers have documented circular scars across sperm whale hide for over a century, wounds that match the hook pattern of squid tentacles almost perfectly, not the smooth sucker marks left by giant squid, but distinct, torn, hooked gouges. Some individual whales carry dozens of these scars, layered over each other from what appears to be repeated encounters across a lifetime of deep dives. Researchers studying scar density and placement have started using those marks almost like a fight record. Older whales tend to carry more scarring, and the scars cluster around the head and jaw, exactly where a squid would be grabbing on during a struggle at depth. But calling this one-sided would miss the point entirely. The colossal squid's beak, the hardest part of its body, is proportionally larger than the giant squid's, built to shear through flesh in a fight it doesn't intend to lose without damage. Even a squid that ultimately loses the encounter can leave a sperm whale wounded, scarred, sometimes for the rest of its life. That's the real story the scars tell. Not a clean kill, but a battle between 2 animals capable of hurting each other, fought in complete darkness, kilometers below the surface, where no one was ever meant to see it. For smaller or younger squid, walking away doesn't happen at all, and sperm whale stomachs have turned up more colossal squid beak fragments than any other source of physical evidence for the species' existence. For nearly a century after its formal description, that's almost all scientists had, indirect proof. Beaks in whale stomachs, torn limbs on long lines, a handful of damaged specimens hauled up from trawlers, none of them intact enough to reveal what a living, undamaged colossal squid actually looked like in its own environment. That changed only recently when researchers piloting a deep-sea submersible achieved the first confirmed sighting of a live colossal squid in its natural habitat. It wasn't hauled up, injured, or torn from a hook. It was filmed, drifting through open water at depth, moving under its own power, completely undisturbed, a full century after the species was first named from 2 chewed-up arm fragments. For that entire 100 years, everything humanity knew about this animal came from violence, whale stomachs, and fishing lines. The footage changed that in an instant, giving researchers their first real look at how the animal actually holds itself, moves, and behaves when nothing is trying to kill it. It's a reminder of how much of the deep ocean is still unmapped, and how the biggest animal of its kind on the planet spent most of human history as a ghost, known only by its scars, its beak, and the size of the eyes that let it see us coming before we ever saw it.